What if I told you the price your customer ends up paying isn't shaped by the number on the screen, but by the very first number they saw, even if it wasn't yours? Today, we're revealing the psychological anchor that influences every retail purchase decision. We're taking a focused look at pricing psychology and specifically that really powerful cognitive shortcut known as the price anchor. Now, if you're in high volume competitive retail, you might think you've got pricing down. But our exploration today suggests maybe not. We have a consultant from Insight Track joining us who are specialists in competitor pricing monitoring and, well, market intelligence to walk us through all this.
It's so important we talk about this. We see it all the time, actually. Smart retailers who are making these self-inflicted margin losses just because they're looking at numbers in a vacuum.
Right. And the real insight we're getting into today is that this whole perception of pricing, it's
Mhm.
often influenced long before a customer even sees your final price tag.
That's absolutely right. I mean, for any retailer relying on competitive pricing software or, market tracking tools, interpreting what your competitors are doing, well, it's the difference between profit and loss. If you're just blindly reacting to raw numbers scraped from a website, you are missing the entire story.
So, our mission today is pretty clear. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding these sort of invisible psychological forces that are shaping retail pricing decisions. We're moving beyond just the theory and really focusing on the strategic side of it, how to set an anchor, but also crucially, how to spot when one is being used against you. So let's lay the foundation. The common mistake retailers make is to assume that, price perception is this pure rational calculation just based on the number. But the
Yeah.
research shows customers almost never judge value in isolation.
No, they don't. They judge it relative to the first number they're exposed to. We call it price anchoring because a customer has this inherent reliance on the first piece of price information they see. That becomes the reference point for everything that follows. It is the ultimate cognitive shortcut.
Can you give us an example?
Of course. Imagine you're looking for a new laptop. You're faced with hundreds of them. If the very first one you click on is, say, 3,000 pounds, that number immediately calibrates your brain.
Right, so that sets my expectation for what's normal or high end.
It does.
Yes.
Every laptop you see after that, a 1,200-pound model, an 800-pound one, it's all processed against that initial 3,000-pound baseline.
That's quite fascinating, actually, because it means your competitor's price isn't just a threat. It could be a tool they're using to reframe the value of your product without you even knowing it.
That's the one. If your key competitor anchors high, they've already made your mid-range price look better, even if you're selling the exact same item. It just proves retailers are competing on, perception and context, not just the raw numbers. That anchor sets the tone for the whole category.
But hold on, if everyone sort of knows this basic idea anchoring, why are pricing teams still getting it wrong? Or, more to the point, why are they struggling to see when a competitor's doing it to them?
Well, I think the problem isn't the theory, is it? It's the execution and the subtlety. It's easy to think of an anchor as just one price point, but in modern e-commerce, it's so much more fluid. It's influenced by presentation, by positioning, by the sequence you see things in,
Yeah.
and your basic price monitoring systems just don't capture any of that.
Okay, so let's dig into that. How is the psychological lever actually being pulled in retail today, both online and in store?
Well, we see it in about four key ways. And it's important to say not all of them are, deliberately manipulative. Some are just a natural result of how information is presented to a customer.
Okay.
So first, and maybe the most subtle, is what we call the sequencing of prices. Just think about a category page on a website. If a retailer intentionally puts its premium high-cost models, the 400-pound vacuum cleaner, the 1,200-pound telly right at the top.
So every consumer who scrolls down has already been anchored to that high starting point.
Exactly. The psychological impact is huge. You've already processed the idea of spending 1,200 pounds. So when you scroll down and see the 450-pound mid-range model, your brain doesn't just evaluate its features. It evaluates the gap between 1,200 and 450 pounds, and that makes a cheaper one feel like a massive saving.
Whereas if you did it the other way around.
If you start with the cheapest, say, an 80-pound model, suddenly that 450 pounds one looks wildly expensive, even if it's got 3 times the features. Your starting line really does determine the finish line.
And then there's the most classic example, the one we've all fallen for, which is reference pricing. The strike through.
The WAS price.
You see a product for 100 pounds, but right next to it In big friendly letters, it says was 150 pounds. That 150 pounds immediately becomes the anchor, reframing the current price as this unmissable bargain. And the crucial thing is, the customer doesn't need to check if it was ever really sold at 150 pounds.
No, the mere sight of the higher number does all the psychological work for you. It's pure framing. Then thirdly, retailers have to recognize competitor positioning. We see this a lot on online marketplaces. A big competitor might strategically bid up their ad slots to make sure their most extensive high-margin items appear at the very top of a search.
So they're not even trying to sell that specific expensive item. They're trying to set the price ceiling for my whole shopping session.
That's it. That high-priced product is an anchor for the whole category. It subconsciously tells the customer, products in this field are expensive, and that naturally raises the perceived value of their mid-range products and, crucially, yours as well.
Which makes the game so much more complex. And the last one, you said, happens before we even see a number.
Yes, premium presentation. Think about it. If a retailer invests in really sleek packaging or beautiful product photography or even just a super fast, clean website, those visual cues create an assumption of high quality.
You infer the value first.
You do. The customer anchors their expectation of cost based on that premium feel before the number even appears. And that is the total blind spot for basic price tracking tools. Your current software can scrape the 100-pound price, sure, but it can't tell you if that 100 pounds was shown right after a 150-pound anchor. It can't tell you if the packaging made the customer expect it to be 180 pounds. The context is completely invisible if you're only tracking numbers.
This moves us neatly into strategy, then. We often think of competition as a race to the bottom on price. But anchoring lets these sophisticated competitors influence value without resorting to aggressive, margin-killing discounts.
It's a way to defend and even grow margin. When competitors do this well, they're hitting several strategic goals at once. First, they shape customer expectations. They establish what a normal or premium price looks like for that whole category.
So they control the narrative.
They do. Second, they make their mid-tier products feel more affordable. That high anchor acts as a decoy. You're not really expected to buy the 1,000-pound washing machine, but seeing it there makes the 650-pound model look like a really rational, sensible choice.
It's the classic restaurant trick, isn't it? Put a 100-pound bottle of wine on the menu to make the 50-pound one look reasonable. It creates that natural upsell path.
That's it. And it also strengthens the perception of their actual premium lines. By pricing your highest-end products aggressively, you're validating their high value. It reinforces that willingness to pay without needing constant, expensive discount cycles to prove it.
So if we see a competitor holding a really high price on one specific product, our first reaction shouldn't be, oh, they've made a mistake, let's undercut them. It should be,
Is this intentional?
are they using this as an anchor to lift their other prices?
That is the essential interpretation check. If you see the pattern, you avoid that knee-jerk reaction. If you don't, you fall right into the trap.
Let's talk about that trap. What are the specific costly mistakes retailers are making when they fail to see this anchor context?
Well, the first big drain on profit is just unnecessary price drops. A retailer sees a competitor's product priced well above theirs. They assume they need to lower their own price even more to, maximize the gap. But they don't realize the competitor is anchoring high on purpose to lift the whole category's perceived value.
So that retailer is just giving away margin for no reason, competing against a ghost.
Pure avoidable leakage. It really is. Secondly, we see a lot of misplaced promotional activity. A retailer might deepen a discount, say from 20% off to 40%, because they think the size of the saving is the problem. But if the customer's anchor, which was set by the competitor, is so high that the product already feels expensive, a 40% discount might still not feel like enough.
Because the starting point, the frame of comparison, is wrong.
The frame is wrong. So the retailer keeps sacrificing margin, but their conversion rate doesn't improve because they're solving the wrong psychological problem.
And what about on those really important products? The key value items, or KVIs, that shoppers use for comparison.
That's where it can get quite ruthless. Competitors will often anchor their premium items really strongly, which lets them hold more value on their core products, their KVIs. Retailers without this intelligence might feel this false pressure to slash their KVI prices. They see a competitor slightly higher on a KVI and they panic match it, or even go lower, forgetting the competitor has already used their premium range to justify a higher price point across the board.
So you end up cutting prices on the items that move the most volume needlessly.
You do. You're competing against shadows because you don't understand the frame.
Okay, so we've established that ignoring the anchor costs money. But this isn't necessarily about being manipulative. When it's used responsibly, it sounds like it can be a really powerful communication tool
Hmm.
to help customers understand value, which actually strengthens margin. How can retailers start applying this?
Well, the first step is just intentional curation. You have to introduce premium items with purpose to elevate how people see your mid-tier. Audit your website. Are your highest margin items positioned right after a high-end comparison point? You need to structure your catalog for comparison, not just for browsing.
And what about reference pricing?
You should use reference pricing thoughtfully and honestly. If you use a strike-through price, make sure it's accurate. Make sure it's justifiable. That builds trust, but it still gives you that psychological benefit of framing the current price as a good deal.
I think this next point is probably the most important one, focusing on the context outside the price.
Absolutely. You have to highlight value drivers alongside the price. If your product costs a bit more, don't just let the number sit there. Anchor expectations around durability, or your service quality, or maybe it's sustainability credentials. These attributes help the customer anchor their idea of worth, which can justify the price difference and move the decision away from being just about the number.
So creating a consistent story around the pricing.
Yes, a consistent pricing architecture. If customers can see instantly why product A is 50 pounds and product B is 150 pounds because the feature difference is clear, they accept the anchor. And finally, use your promotions to reinforce value, not undermine it. A promotion should confirm that the customer is getting a great deal on something that's already valuable. You don't want to train them to just wait for the price to drop.
It's so clear that this is subtle. Your basic price monitoring tools just aren't going to cut it because they only see the price tag. So if a retailer wants to move from just reacting to actually using this psychology, what specific signals do they need to look for?
To really detect anchoring and, counter it, you need to see the entire competitive playing field. The context. We've identified about 6 specific insights that separate real intelligence from just basic scraping.
Okay.
First, you need deep visibility into your competitor's assortment structure.
Yeah.
What percentage of their catalog is premium? What's mid-tier? What's entry-level? That distribution tells you so much about their core margin strategy.
It's an architecture decision, not a price point.
That's it. You also need to monitor stock levels and availability, especially on those high-priced anchor products. If a competitor has a 1,500-pound product listed but it's always out of stock, or it takes 6 weeks to ship,
Then you know it's a strategic phantom anchor. It's just there to frame the market, not to actually sell.
you got it. Then you need to track promotional timing and mechanics. Are they discounting the cheap item or the expensive anchor? And, maybe most tellingly, you need to track content changes and product positioning. Look for those subtle shifts in images or text that are designed to either elevate or diminish perceived value.
And finally, those visual elements we talked about earlier.
Yes, tracking the sequencing of items online, what filter defaults are they using, and crucially, tracking shifts in customer search behavior relative to certain price points. It's this level of context that lets a retailer make a confident decision to identify an anchor instead of just panicking every time a competitor adjusts a number.
So the core finding here is that pricing isn't just about numbers. It's about context, it's about customer psychology, and it's about strategic framing. And when retailers can combine that advanced contextual intelligence with really thoughtful communication, they can shape value perception in a way that strengthens both their competitiveness and their margin.
And if there's one final thought for you to mull over, it's this. Maybe spend a little less time reacting to your competitors' prices and a bit more time auditing your own product sequencing and presentation. See what psychological anchor you might be unintentionally setting for your own customers. You could be depressing your own perceived value without even realizing it.
If today's exploration made you rethink how you're monitoring competitor prices or how anchoring affects your pricing decisions, you'll find a wealth of practical insights at insighttrack.com. And if you'd like a conversation about your current setup, just practical guidance, you can book a consultation directly at the same link.